Okay. Good morning. Uh, I have a question. I guess I am a little concerned with how America is leaving Afghanistan. I was opposed to us going in when that happened many years ago. I think been 20 years now, and I'm more, I guess, a little shocked by how they're leaving. And what's concerning me is it seems like we're leaving it in a worse state than we found it. Uh, we went in supposedly for humanitarian reasons, and now we're leaving, and you already have the Afghan police and military surrendering to Taliban in order to save their lives because they know what's going to happen when America leaves. So they're surrendering weapons now and kind of preparing for what is to come. You also have the people, whether they were medical staff or teachers or interpreters or whatever, who support staff that are also questioning what's going to happen to us because everybody knows who we are, what's going to happen to us, and once you pull out. So my thing is the lack of concern there. I find a little interesting because if this was your attitude, why did we go in the first place? If you're going to just up and leave like this and leave this without any type of exit plan or any thought to what's going to take place after you leave, maybe someone else knows the answer better than me. Maybe just my ignorance is not seeing this in the totality, the bigger picture. So help me with that, please.
First of all, America says that they are going to move those people out to other countries to protect them until after their visas have been processed for them to come to this country. However, it is impossible for them to get all of those people who were a part of the support staff and their families out. The other thing is America never went to Afghanistan for humanitarian reasons. They simply went to Afghanistan seeking revenge for what happened on 9/11. They were not seeking to prosecute, but they sought to send a message of what could happen if something like that were to happen again. Why do I say that? Because they had the opportunity to capture bin Laden early in the war, and they didn't. For a little background, bin Laden's daddy and Bush Sr. had been friends over the years, and both of them sit on the board of this arms. It's an arms. It's a company that trades stock for arms dealers worldwide. Carlyle Group. They sit on the board of the Carlyle Group, and that is the reason that after 9/11, the only plane in the sky was bin Laden's brother leaving the Northeast, going back to Saudi Arabia. The other thing is, this is not the first time that America has gone into a country and left it in shambles. They have always done that to every country they've gone in, with the exception of the countries in Europe. The Marshall Plan after World War II rebuilt Europe. But in Vietnam and in whether it be Iraq or Afghanistan or any other country, they have not done that in terms of rebuilding and stationing troops there. in order to ensure safety of the people who had worked with them during their campaign. So what's at work here is the same thing that has always been. People of color are the frontline forces for whatever Americans want to do, or Europeans or people of European descent, what they want to do. And at the end of that, they don't care what happened to the people who have been in their service. And I blame not only the Americans and Europeans for that, I also blame the leadership in those countries because they know that America has never done anything to protect people of color. And a case in point is when Bill Clinton refused to stop the massacre, the genocide that was taking place in Africa between the Houthis and this other tribe. I can't think of the name of that group. But anyway, you probably know what I'm talking about. So this is nothing new at all. It's just a continuation of the same racism. The spiritual side of that is this. At some point, we as a people, when I say we as a people, I'm talking about all people of color, have to come to an understanding that Europeans do not have our best interests at heart at any point in any time and never have at any point in history. Our only deliverance is at our own hands. And our own hands, being our deliverer, does not speak to picking up arms and doing the same thing that they're doing. Our hands being our source of deliverance is that our understanding of our spiritual authority, power, and strength is the thing that's going to deliver us. And is not going to deliver just the Afghans or the Iraqis. It's going to deliver people of color everywhere. Because in order for all people of color to be delivered, then the Caucasian has to be delivered also from his barbaric behavior, and has to be shown that it was created in the same manner of everyone else, and that their attitude must shift from greed and self-preservation to living in harmony with all of humanity. I hope that helps you, Ron.
It does, and I appreciate the latter part of it because a lot of times I think just us putting stuff out there and talking about it, especially where we are in the last few months as far as our studies, I think makes a difference in the world. And just wanted to kind of put it out there because I thought that was something that needed addressing.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, the way you covered it at the latter end about a solution. The solution has to be spiritual. There is no other way around that. So, thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? Well, that kind of sort of leads me into something I wanted to talk about today. Last time we talked, Evelyn raised a question about anger, and if hope I'm remembering it correctly. She said, but something to the effect that all of us get angry at some times. Am I representing that well, Evelyn?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I wanted to expand on the response or lack thereof to that. And the reason I want to is because I think it's extremely important that we understand the nature of anger when it comes to spirituality. me go back to Moses. When Moses was in the wilderness, he and the Hebrews were in the wilderness. Moses was summoned to come to the mountains by our Creator. And while Moses was there in a higher place of elevation, some things took place. Aaron began to build a golden calf at the request or demand of the people, which was mistake number one, because if you're the leader, you don't bow to the demands of the people. You do what's best for the people. And in doing so, the Creator, speaking with Moses, said that it would destroy all of them for what they were doing. And Moses intervened and said, if you destroy them, then it will be said that you could not protect your people in the wilderness. That's a loaded statement, to say the least. Then we look at Jesus in the temple. When Jesus comes into Jerusalem during the time of the Passover, he goes to the temple, and in the temple he encounters groups there selling oxen and sheep and doves, and money changers sitting there in the temple exchanging currency, and I'll explain that in a moment. So why was this loaded? There was a message in this to Moses. The anger was, if you look at the anger by the Creator, it speaks to being taking it personal, that I brought you into this wilderness, and now you're going to create a god in the image of something that you encountered in Egypt, and you're going to look to it for your deliverance and preservation when I am the one who brought you here. That's personal. And Moses appealed to the Creator in that regard. That's probably something that Ron is going to look at later in depth to understand why the Creator got angry. I'm going to now let me look at a moment at what happened with Jesus. Jesus was there in that temple, and when Jesus came to the temple, the question would be, to me anyway, why would he get angry? Because they were selling animals for sacrifice and exchanging currency. Well, to understand this, we have to understand the cultural aspects of it. During the time when Solomon built the temple, Solomon declared that this house shall be called the house of prayer, the house of meditation, a place where you can come and focus on your Creator and your relationship with the Creator, a place where you can leave all your cares behind and take off everything that besets you and be one with the Creator. This was the vision that Solomon had for the temple. Excuse me. So now here we are with Jesus coming into Jerusalem for the Passover. And here he encounters these people selling these animals for sacrifice. Well, what happened is no one was permitted to sell in the temple complex without permission from the priest. And the priest had commissioned these people to buy animals at a lower price and sell them for an exorbitant profit to the people who were coming in for the sacrifice from different places in the world, and they were making an extraordinary profit on. In other words, they were cheating the people. And the money changers were exchanging the temple currency for currency from different places in the world, as well as the Roman coin that was used there in Palestine. The temple coin was minted by the priests, and the only monies that could be spent in the temple complex were the temple coins. So you had to exchange your money for the temple coins. And again, it was being done at an exorbitant rate. So again, they were cheating the people. Now, please don't lose sight of this. There was no need for them to engage in such profiteering, and because at the onset, at the establishment of the priesthood, the Levites were not given a portion of the land, and the Creator had determined that the Levites would live by the tithe. The tithe was to come from the other tribes, and they were to render a tithe and an offering to the Levites, and the Levites were to be the mitigating force between our Creator and the rest of the people. They were to be the holy men, so to speak. They were to be the voice between the people and God, and therefore there was no need for them to do what they were doing. With this deep expression of greed, Jesus responded, and he did it by taking strands of cord and driving and twisting them together and driving them from the temple. The anger that Jesus expressed was an anger pretty much related to the Creator being angry with the people for the golden calf, but in a different way. Jesus was angry because of what the priests were doing to the people. The Creator was angry. It seems as though it was a personal thing, and it had to be mitigated by Moses. So what am I saying here? What I'm saying is this: anger is something. It's an emotion that has to be controlled. If you don't control it, it will control you. So Jesus' anger was on behalf of the people. 99.9% of the time, when we get angry, it's because of something that someone has done to us or something that someone has said to or about us. If we are to be who we are created to be, if we are to continue the work of Jesus, in that we are to utilize the teachings of Jesus in order to bring deliverance to all of humanity, we must control our anger. When we get angry because of what someone has done to us as an individual, when it becomes personal, then the focus is shifted from the greater picture. And that greater picture is deliverance for humanity, balance for humanity. When we are angry on behalf of the people, then that focus is shifted to the greater picture. In other words, our anger is not at an individual person, a Trump or a Mitch McConnell. Why? Because when you focus on that individual, then your energy is focused towards that individual. And even though that individual may change or die, the circumstances don't change. However, if your anger is focused towards the circumstance, then that's a type of righteousness that keeps you focused, and that great commitment um, deeper than any commitment than you've had prior to that, and it eventually gets you to a place where you're no longer angry about what's happening. You simply stay focused on bringing an end to the circumstances that are burdens for humanity. And I think it's interesting that Jesus focus for their anger was towards the priests because of what they were doing to fleece the flock. Now, I don't see that anger of Jesus any differently than what our anger should be towards religious leadership during this period of time as well. Because the focus of leadership is on the money. It's still in the same place. And our anger should be on behalf of the people who are being fleeced. Now, you say, but we're not selling animals for sacrifice. You're absolutely right. We're not. However, if you, in many settings, if you don't render a tithe, you can't be on the usher board. You can't function in different auxiliaries within that setting. There are financial reports given that embarrasses you because of what you did not do or were not able to do. When the tithe was set to be for the benefit of the priest, the caveat to that was it was forever, which means that if the focus of religious leadership was in the correct place, then the focus of the leadership would understand the nature of the tithe, the nature of the offering, and their focus would not be on it. It would be on what is best for the people, the best for humanity. And when that takes place, then it is incumbent upon the Creator to make sure that the tithes and offerings are rendered in such a manner that the priests are taken care of. When we look at how things have been done, what we see is that we have allowed the Romans to tell the Hebrews, the Palestinians, the Africans, how things are to be in the spiritual/religious settings, as opposed to the reverse of that. We have allowed men who are wrought with greed and has no care for us as a people, don't even see us as humans, to tell us how the scriptures are to be understood, and they have no appreciation or desire to understand the cultural norms of that time or the cultural norms that we have to this day. So it is incumbent upon us to look at the scriptures again for the first time and to understand that even though these people have enslaved us and treated us in ways less than they treat their pets, we are not to be angry with them as an individual. We're to be it's okay to be angry with the circumstances. However, don't let your anger cause you to lose focus. Don't let your anger translate into hatred. Why? Because we cannot deliver ourselves without delivering those who are engaged in the dehumanization of us as a people. We must stay focused on our purpose for being in this earth. Are there any questions or comments? Am I clear?
It's clear. I guess one of the things too that I get from what you're saying, and you know, we've said this in other lessons or other previous times, but it seems like when you look at religious settings or man's approach to God, it hasn't changed in hundreds or thousands of years. Uh, Circumstances are pretty much the same as far as how men treat each other and what's important. And even then, there was manipulation or material gain had very little to do with God or doing what is right for anybody except for leading people in the direction you wanted them to go so that they could be controlled. That hasn't changed. The method maybe has changed slightly, but the practice has not.
But absolutely, the practice has not changed. The financial report or the auxiliaries functioning with an auxiliary has simply replaced the purchase of sacrifices. Nothing really has changed. Methods change with time. However, circumstances or the circumstances don't change, but the methods have changed with time. It's up to us to change the circumstances. I am convinced that we are the only people in this earth who do what we do, and there are those who may call it arrogant. And if that's how you feel about it, I don't even want to hear it. To be honest with you, because it's not about arrogance. It's about a deep desire to change things. And I have a reason for saying this. The reason I say this is because we did not begin to see anything change until we made a determination that we would be the catalyst of change. Not only that, we would bear the brunt of any backlash from this change. We would be the bridge across which humanity would travel in order to get to a place of change. And this started in December of 2011 when we made a decision that regardless of the consequences or rewards, we are going to be the catalyst that saves humanity from self-destruction. And from that day forward, we were being prepared without knowing it by the universe to get to a place where we could properly handle the exposure of everything that we are seeing. We began to talk about our deep desire that everything that needs to be changed would be exposed. And that is the reason I believe that no one else does what we are doing except us, because we saw the changes as we were talking about them. The change did not come, and then we talked about it. We talked about what needed to be changed, the misogynist attitudes of men, of white men in particular. When we talked about those kinds of things, we started seeing those things being exposed. I believe that since the ascension of Jesus, there hasn't been a group who has committed their lives to doing this. And for those who say that's a bold statement, indeed it is. However, if it were not us who was doing it and we found out it could be done, we would be asking, why not us? Well, it is us. And I make no apologies for what we have done in terms of embarking on this journey of change. I make no apologies for the understandings that we have been shown and the way that we have delivered them. And the reason I make no apologies is because we who have eyes are seeing that there is a change in the midst. The scripture talks about let him who have eyes see, let him have ears hear. We are seeing and we are hearing. And in doing so, we are the catalyst for change for humanity. I for quite some time have kept this to myself because I did what religion has taught us to feel uneasy about saying who you are. I am no longer uneasy about that. I have no compunctions about saying that we meaning not only the 13 of us, but those who are privy to what's being taught are the catalyst for change, excuse me, for humanity. And everything that we've talked about during the course of this pandemic, we have seen it come into fruition. We are witnesses to something that has never taken place in this earth. The challenges to racism has been in this earth ever since Europeans came in contact with people of color. And this is the first time since that contact was made that there has been a concerted spiritual effort to bring about change without hating the enslaver, to bring about change without making some effort to make a system fit into to fit a group of people who was never included in that system. We have been fighting for systemic change, but we've done it and are doing it in a spiritual way. It has nothing to do with the governance in terms of earthly principles, but it has everything to do with the governance in terms of the principles of the kingdom of our Creator. Now, I want to stop there for questions and comments, but prior to that, let me ask Evelyn about the anger question. Does that help you?
Yes, sir, and it does. And what you brought light on as well when you were talking about the situation. No, I don't get a lot of times I don't get angry at the person who has done something that I feel that is not right. But the situation, it's like it's not called. I mean, it's just why this would happen. Why is this? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? What I'm saying? It's the situation that I am not pleased with.
Well, see, if the situation that you're not pleased with involves you, that's an individual thing. If the situation that you're not pleased with involves humanity, that's a whole different ballgame.
Well, it's both.
Okay. Now, this is what I'm saying, Evelyn. Being discomforted is one thing, but being angry at an individual because of something that came your way is a whole different thing. And I'm saying that we have to get to a place, and I'm not picking on you by any means. All of us are experiencing or have experienced what you're talking about. And so I'm saying that we have to bring ourselves to a place where we may be discomforted but not angry because it happened to us, because, again, we lose focus. There are times when we have to be brought back into focus by those around us or by talking to ourselves. And I encourage us to be honest with ourselves and continue to talk to ourselves or talk it out with other people until we get to a place where it may be discomfort, but it's not anger that we lay down on overnight or that we allow to get us off balance, further off balance. That's all I'm saying, Evelyn.
Well, my thing is maybe I used the wrong word. I don't know, because anger could not be how I feel sometimes. I think I don't know what it is. So should I use another word instead of anger?
No, don't worry about it.
Okay.
You had to do that. If you had not said what you said the way you said it, we would not have this discussion. And don't you think for a moment that even if you use the wrong word, that it wasn't someone out there who's doing the same thing or doing it on purpose, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, every question that comes is not just for the individual. It's for everyone on these lines and everyone they come in contact with. There are no happenstances here. There are no coincidences here. Everything is measured. And the one who measures everything that is done here is our Creator. The universe does this. It is not we who do it. The only thing we are doing is responding to what is being presented to us. Our table is prepared for us in the presence of our enemy. And what I mean by that is the table of change and how it is to take place is prepared for us in the midst of these adversarial circumstances, and that table is what we partake of for the purpose of bringing those adversarial circumstances to a halt, so that the perpetuators of those circumstances can take a seat at the table of change as well. Does that make sense?
It does, and there's also light in anger as well, isn't it? It's a positive in anger.
Light is in everything, and the positivity of anger depends on how you handle it, whether or not you control it or it controls you.
Well, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. It's opening my eyes up to a lot of stuff.
Thank you, ma'am. And again, I say to all of us, the questions that are raised for the benefit of everyone. And those questions that you keep, it's like keeping food from those who are hungry. So if you have a question, you need to raise it for the benefit of humanity. Any comments or questions?
Hey, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Rev, I agree with what you stated. Ron said something that he said in the way that we deal with God, it hasn't changed. And I'm paraphrasing what he said. And I think it has changed. And one of the things that I agree.
George.
What's that again?
He didn't say the way we deal with God. He said the way he said the things have not changed from the way they happened in the temple. The way the priests were ripping people off in the temple. That's what he said.
Well, I would say to that, and if that's what Ron said, that's what he said. And even in that, I would say things have changed. When you look at what Greater New Faith Foundation is doing, we're the catalyst. We're changing things. And one of the ways that we change things is what I agree with what you stated and what everyone else has stated, raising questions. And when you look at a conversation that morphs into a discussion, the attention span of the human being, by way of a conversation that morphs into the discussion, our attention span is really more closer to infinity. When you look at a minister who is preaching out of the pulpit, male or female, they know that if they give a 10-minute sermon, 9 minutes and 15 seconds, we don't understand. All public speakers know that, whether they've gone to seminary school or whether they went to the cemetery. So one of the things that can suppress our anger and help us grow at the same time is just conversation of dissecting the origin of things. And, I would ask Ms. Evelyn, without the conversations that we have on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, just ask yourself, how angry would you be? If I didn't have you all to discuss some things with, I wouldn't want to be a person you want to be around. So we are changing. Yes, you do have an element of weak arm robbery in the church where certain ministers, I need $100. That's emotional blackmail. You got to come on up here and give your money. Let people see what you're doing. But nonetheless, by way of conversation, we grow. We become the catalyst out here. And by way of these conversations, which could be opinionated, too much is given, much is required, or much is expected. So, in what we're doing, we're the catalyst. We're changing things. If I'm the big dog who wear the big drawers at my job, then the same thing takes place for Evelyn, Ron, Tiffany, Robbie, Lamont, Andre, the twin, Monique, Wanda, Tiffany, ST, blah, 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 blah. So we're the catalyst out here that's making change. People come to us. Could you help me process this out? Why do you think they're coming to you? Something different about it. So, in conclusion, I support what you said now, Rev, and saying conversation and supporting conversation that morphs into a discussion does not mean that I have to agree with you. That doesn't mean you have to agree with me. But there's some perks to what we do out here. So
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, George. What I was explaining, and you kind of echoing it, and what you're saying is religion. There's something in man that knows that there is a true God. There is something in us that vibrates, that sets in rhythm. We don't always relate to it. We don't always explore it. And it has been easier for man since the very beginning to make that into what he wants it to be. And what I'm saying is religion doesn't know the God that created them. Religion doesn't know who the creator is. Religion doesn't know who it is, who we are as people. And so you take that rhythm that you feel and you turn it into something that you can relate to. And you use it to manipulate people, whether or not it's to keep them in a certain economical place, or to keep them status-wise that you're over them, or, lording over them, whether or not it's to take funds from them, or you keep them under your control. And that becomes comfortable to you. And that's what I'm saying. That approach has not changed. But you're absolutely right. And as Pastor said before you took the mic, and he said it wasn't just the 13 of us, but the rest of us on this phone, we have started a new journey. We have started the journey to seeking truth and being truth at any cost. And that is the difference, and that is the change that's taking place. But I was alluding to what got us here, where we are and where the world was, and us for that matter, prior to 2011. The journey started before then, but it took root as we began to see and recognize and not be afraid of who we are, not question that, not say why me, or this, or am I sure I'm seeing this right? When it became apparent to us that we're on the right track, and to me, it may have even been a little later than that. I think the last couple of years has really kind of helped me to take root in this thing and recognize who I am as an individual and not be afraid of that. So that's what we're referring to when we talk about things had not changed. Religious approach to the Creator has not changed since the beginning of man until now. Does that help?
Well, Ron, I agree with you to disagree with you. I still take the stance of things have changed. Yet from a historical aspect, now if you were to say, Ron, from a historical aspect, I would side with that. I would just side with it because you said from a historical aspect. And we just agree to disagree. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I understand what you're saying. I think you understand what I'm saying. we may just be saying things differently. You saying tomato, I'm saying tomato. You got a bacon and some bread, you're gonna have a BLT. The taste ain't gonna change, just how we say it. So,
yeah,
like I say, I agree to disagree with. I think things have changed. Yet, from a historic, if you're like I said, if you're coming from a historical aspect, heck, I would even say that changed. It may have done got worse now.
Well, we're saying the same thing, George. I'm saying from the inception of man, you call it historical. Excuse me. I think we are saying the same thing. We agree on that degree, on that point. Looking at it from that aspect, I think we were using different terminology here.
Well, the other part of this, Reverend Richard and Miss Evelyn, to the rest of the group, when you talk about anger, I think Jesus walked into Jerusalem already flirting with anger. It's just my contention and my belief that no one really goes from 0 to 100 like that. There's always something that was some preamble stuff that took place. Now, can people go from 100 to 0 real quick? Yeah. Give them responsibility. You will see people who are animated. The minute you give some people who are animated responsibility and accountability, they quickly go to 0. However, I just don't think that Jesus.
George.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no scripture that says Jesus was angry before he got there. There's nothing that supports that. What sparked this whole thing was the actions that he saw going on in the temple, and what had taken place was something it was not the first time that it had taken place, but it had become a business to cheat the people, to set up these money changers, and to set up the way people were buying buying their sacrifices had become a business to make a lot of money. That's what got him angry, but there's nothing else to support that he was angry before he got there.
Okay, well, what evidence do you have to support to say that?
Could I interject and say something, please? This is Kathy. Kathy. I can vouch for the change have not taken place because I'm there in the midst. And I see what go on, and I hear what go on. I see the anger that comes when people when they won't do what the head wants them to do, as far as some people are not able to pay their tithe and offering because they are buying medication and they have doctor bills and they own a fixed income. So then the head gets angry with these people because they don't pay the Father's Day, the Men's Day assessment, the Women's Day assessment. And I think every day, every Sunday, from Sunday to Sunday. And they change one thing. Yeah, something do change, but then they replace it with something else. And that makes the people angry. So now the church is not filling up, not only because of the pandemic, it's because of the way that the church have been run from generation to generation, and they feel like they have to keep it going the way that grandmama and them way back then, the ancestors did back then. They feel like they don't have to change because it's like they feel like they doing them an injustice. But when it get to a point to where you don't want to communicate with a family member that has a deceased member that passed away, and this deceased member had been in the church even when I was a little bitty child, and you don't want to go to their house because they didn't pay their tithe and offering, because they have dementia, they don't even know nothing about no tithe and offering, can't even remember what tithe and offering was, but you get angry at them because the family members won't pay the tithe and offering for that person. You call in their house and you asking the family members, the children, to pay the tithe and offering for your mother because this is something she would have wanted to do. The change is not, it should have been taking place a long time ago, but the change is not there like it should be. It's like the Harlans are taking over. They don't care nothing about the sheep. They don't care nothing about your responsibilities of you having food in your mouth or you having a roof over your head. All they care about is getting their pockets fat. And if they could get it out of you, there are things that you would think that it would go to help keep the building clean, to pay somebody to keep the building clean, or, nobody's volunteering to go do it because everybody got their hand out wanting to pay. But when you robbing, Paul to pay Peter, or Peter to pay Paul, whichever one it go, it's no change. You don't see the change. So people are getting so angry, they don't care whether they go into church or not, because they hearing the same, if you pay me, I'll do a better sermon next Sunday. But if you don't pay me, I'm just going to give you what I got and been speaking on for the last 15 years. I just keep giving it over and over and over because you don't put no money. So the change is taking place in the places like what y'all doing now, where y'all teaching and we coming in getting the learning. And then we go back out to share with others about the teaching that we are getting. And yes, we're getting it into the macro and praying that, believing that it's going to get out there. But we know that in time it's going to happen. But there is barely a change going on in the temple of God. Not only that, you are fighting in the church. Actually, not would have been fist fighting, but you're arguing in the house that you're supposed to be worshiping in. So there's no change, much change I see taking place. And I'm done.
Thank you. I think that really sums it up. I was about to intervene with that, but I'm glad I didn't, because that's exactly what we are talking about. The methods are different, but the results are the same, and that is greed taking hold, and the place that's supposed to be the house of prayer. When we were talking about anger, let me say this quickly. It wasn't Evelyn to whom I was speaking. It was because of the question that she raised. And the question that was raised, and I reiterate this, is not for her as an individual. It is for humanity, period, to understand the nature of how things are in this earth. So having said that, let me see if there are any other statements in reference to what has been said up to this point.
Well, Reb, and the question that I said was, as it relates to anger, it was my contention and belief that Jesus was flirting with anger. And the reason why I say that, Reb, just based on chronological order.
Well, first of all, Jesus, there is no chronology that speaks to Jesus being angry. It is no different than you walk in your house and you see something that pisses you off. You were not pissed off before you got there. Because of what you walked into is what made you angry. Now, I don't want to further debate on whether or not Jesus was angry before he got to the temple or whether he wasn't, because I don't see the value in that in terms of our being able to move further on this journey of change for the whole of humanity. The point of the matter is this, that Jesus overturned the tables, that Jesus did it because the priests in the temple had set up businesses in the temple when they were told not to. They were never supposed to be engaged in any business practices whatsoever because the tithe had been given to them forever according to the scriptures. So regarding that, I want us to see that right now, in a metaphorical way, the tables are being turned over, and who are turning those tables over? The people are overturning the tables because they are tired of the burdens that's being placed upon them with no recourse. They are tired of being embarrassed and manipulated into paying monies that they don't have. They are embarrassed at having to go to a finance company to borrow money to meet and to pay an assessment. They are embarrassed at the pressures that have been put on them for them to do things that they know that they're not capable of doing. They are angry because they couldn't buy their insulin last month because they knew when the financial report comes out next month, it's going to have a 0 beside their name for an assessment for Women's Day or for Men's Day. These are the things that Jesus was dealing with at that point. And the reason that these priests were doing that is the same reason that these financial reports are out there, to get more money. And there is absolutely nothing in Scripture that says that simply because you are a preacher or that you are a pastor or that you are a bishop or whatever you want to call it, that you are supposed to be financially wealthy. There's absolutely nothing that says that. The greatest wealth that I have ever experienced is when children come to me and talk and speak to me about the things that we have taught, or when someone comes to me and says to me, I thank you for relieving me or helping me to feel more comfortable in not being able to render tithe and offering. Now I'm in a better place. There's nothing more comforting than someone to come and say to me, you called me at the right time. I was going through some things when you called me. This is not about a pastor, a preacher having an astronomical amount of money so that he can leave some money to somebody, or that he can present himself as being a quote-unquote big wheel. Because people who are influential in this society, their influence is usually based upon how much money they have, especially in the church, what kind of car you drive, what kind of house you live in. These are the elements in this society that determines your worthiness, as opposed to understanding and knowing that there is no such thing as whether or not a person is worthy of anything. We are people, and all of us are the same without regard to our means. And if we do not understand that spiritually, that in itself presents a serious problem for us to move to a place of change. However, we have made a decision that money, friendship, biological relationship, none of that will have an adverse effect or will moderate the way that we travel this journey. I and others are in the position where we have said and mean it. Even if we have to walk away from everything in this earth, we are going to travel this spiritual journey the way the Creator is guiding us along this spiritual journey. We are not obligated to do anything religiously, meaning that to do it simply because it is a habitual thing. We are only obligated to humanity, and with this obligation to humanity, we are no longer doing it in conjunction with the universe. We are the universe, and the universe is us. We are our Creator, and the Creator is us, because creation is continuing to progress, is continuing to take place. And at the juncture where we are now, we will not be hesitant about saying the things that we are shown and about doing the things that we are asked to do. So here we are at this place where we are understanding the bottom line. Do not allow your anger to control you. You control the anger. And with Jesus was in his actions were indicative of the depth of the pain that he felt when he saw how the people were being manipulated and how the sheep were being sheared. When you look at a financial report and you see what people have put in a church, and then you understand that some of them are only getting $700 a month or $500 a month or $1,000 a month from Social Security, and they still have rent and they still have medication, and you look at that and you wonder how they made it. It's simply by grace that they made it. It certainly wasn't because someone had mercy on them who was in leadership and said to them, please don't do this. Don't do this. It's okay if you don't. No, this is where the heart of the shepherd comes into play. This is where you find out whether or not the shepherd has a heart for the people or greed for itself. And what I have experienced, it doesn't matter whether it is Southern Baptist or Missionary Baptist, whether it's United Methodist or whether it is the African Methodist Church. It doesn't matter. Leadership is all about itself, and right now we are exposing it to the extent that the Southern Baptist Church itself is falling apart, and it's evident what's going on there. I read an article, and in that article I read where they were falling apart. This is, and when you look at a church that perpetuated slavery and it saw its membership dwindling, and then it decided we're going to recruit black churches so we can prop up our membership. It is saying that we are only doing this for numbers. We don't want them in here, but we need the numbers. So we are doing it for that purpose. And in doing it, then the African churches that go into that setting, they become more Southern Baptist than the Southern Baptists. In other words, their attitude become more Caucasian-like than the Caucasian's attitude is. They are more committed to being what that Southern Baptist principles, what those Southern Baptist principles are, than the ones who are already in there are. So it is these things that we are changing. It is these things that we must change so that humanity can indeed be balanced. It will not be done at the ballot box. It will only be done in the hearts of men. Questions or comments? Did I say anything that you didn't understand?
Pastor, you really enlightened me, and I guess others as well, about what's really happening, the game that is played. Oh, Lord, I just forgot my thought. Oh, I have to remember, and I don't know about anybody else, these are concepts that we're dealing with, not the human, but the concept. And that's what's helping me deal with what I see, the game that is being played in the workplace, on TV, just in the universe in general. I'm done.
Thank you, and for reminding us of that. They are concepts, and when we cease to look at them conceptually, that's when we come to a halt in terms of change taking place, in terms of movement on this journey. We must maintain the understanding and never cease to embrace the reality that we are dealing with the concepts that govern men. Love is a concept of the kingdom. Righteousness is a concept of the kingdom. It is not about an individual. It is about a concept that permeates the society of humanity. Questions or comments? No questions, no comments. If there are no further questions and no comments, then I thank you for all that you've said. We will not be together on Monday night. And remind me to say that tomorrow, okay? Did everybody hang up?
I hear you.
Okay.
Nope, still here.
Did you say we're not meeting tomorrow?
Say again?
Did you say we're not meeting tomorrow?
No, we meet tomorrow, but we don't meet Monday.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? I thank you for your time, and I know that a lot has been said that will enhance your journey. Just embrace it, and if you have questions about it, bring them in the morning at 11 o'clock. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank
4th
you.
to everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, thank